Um, uh, uh,
Morning.
yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. Hi. Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock, and I would like to welcome you to this 30-minute session to look into the COVID-19 outbreak and the effect it's having on us. I don't know how many of you have actually taken a moment to have a look at the BBC website, but the BBC is reporting that up to 50,000 people are currently affected in the UK and about 185,000 worldwide. So this really is going to affect all of us. Our aim today is to provide advice and guidance on what are unprecedented times and help guide you so in turn you can support your teams who are or will be working remotely. And for many, this may be the first occasion, and this is something we've got to remember. The outbreak appears to be gathering pace and is having a profound effect on all of us and the ones we love. So to start with, there's some housekeeping, and then I'll introduce to you Joyce Shaw.
Morning, my name is Jerry.
Yeah, sorry, I've right. Hi, good morning to you. It's Peter Kinselley, and welcome to this 30-minute session to look at the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak is having on us. Today, the BBC has reported that up to 50,000 people are affected in the UK and 185,000 worldwide. Our aim is to provide you with guidance in these unprecedented times, and also to help guide you so that you can in turn support your teams. Many of them are going to be soon working remotely, and for some it's going to be for the first time. The outbreak appears to be gathering pace and is having a profound effect on us all and the ones we love. To start with, we have some housekeeping, and then I'll introduce you to Jocelyn Shaw, who's our Director of Strategy at Makes in Mind, and Harry Bliss, who's Director at Champion Health. So if you've got any questions you'd like to pose to us during the course of the presentation, please can I ask you to post them online here on Skype. And what we will do is we'll do our best to answer your questions and also make sure that if we can't answer them during the course of this session, that what we do is we do a follow-up. Now, whilst I'm hosting this call, I'm also joined by the wider Cardinals team. We have John Abbott, our Global Sales Director and Ergonomics Expert, who is happy to answer any questions that you have on his specialist area. We've also got Claudia Calder, who's recently joined us and has a medical research background, and actually will answer any questions as they arise. So, before we start, I really have got a few things that I would like you to consider. So first off, your duty of care to your staff, and particularly to those who you would consider as vulnerable during this outbreak. Also, we need to consider the health and well-being of those who are working at home. This includes those who are potentially self-isolating and the challenges of working in an environment that's not designed for office work, and also areas where space might be restricted. And also, we are looking at the impact of schools and businesses closing and how that will affect us in our daily lives. I would like to now just introduce you to Jocelyn and to Harry. Jocelyn, would you just give us a little bit of a background to you and the work Makes in Mind does?
Good morning. Thank you very much indeed, Peter, and for the opportunity to be here this morning, and good morning to everyone who's joining us. I'm Jocelyn Shaw, Director of Strategy at Makes in Mind. We are a young charity that was set up to help workplaces improve mental health, very much initially spearheaded to support the construction sector, though we are now three and a half years on from our startup, working more widely, particularly in areas like transport and logistics. I am very pleased to be here. I must admit, I was speaking with Peter before, and he knows more about my story, but I must confess that I have been living with the COVID-19 for some weeks now, as with my husband's return from travel to northern Italy. Fortunately not in the red zone, but still within the northern Italy zone. We as a family had to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. And it has meant quite a significant change in the way I've been working, and obviously also then in terms of the implications for us as a team and within our wider group, which really spearheaded our conversations with regards to business continuity planning and some of the steps that we needed to take. So very happy to be part of this and to share some of my insight and experience.
Jocelyn, thank you. Harry, would you be kind enough to introduce yourself as well?
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you all for taking the time out today to talk about something that is so important, arguably the most important thing within our business at the moment, and that's looking after our people. So to give you a brief background on myself and Champion Health, I founded Champion Health 2 years ago, having worked for the largest corporate health provider, and what we focus on is all areas of health and well-being, from sleep through to mental health through to musculoskeletal health, as it's so important that our strategies focus on all of these areas as they are interlinked. So any questions today around health and well-being, I'll be delighted to answer. So thank you so much in advance.
Harry, thank you. So just to sort of start our discussion today, I think it's really important that what we do is we just take a moment to reflect. So I was having a look at, the concerns that are being raised by our client groups and also the feedback that I'm getting from, sort of within the Cardinals team. And one of the things that I recognise is that there is a concern around, doing the right thing at the moment, and also what is the legal position for a response to the COVID-19 outbreak. And HP, who published an article on the 13th of March, and it was entitled COVID-19, Can Employers Be Prosecuted if Employees Are Exposed? And a really interesting article, and I would ask you guys to reach out and have a look at it. But Paul Verrico, who is an eminent lawyer for one of the leading law firms, wrote an article and actually finished it with some really interesting commentary. But he actually advised that the message is simple. Act responsibly and ethically, not out of fear of prosecution, but out of a sense of appropriate accountability to all staff and customer stakeholders. Stay current and do all that's reasonably practicable based on government advice in an ever-changing situation. Now, I'm going to ask Jocelyn to, give me her thoughts on, her experience in actually how this statement will affect us. But guys, can I please remind you that if you do have any questions, please do reach out to us and actually ask. And if there's stuff that, you think we're not touching on, please just raise them and we will answer them for you. So, Jocelyn, given your recent experiences and your current role, can you provide some thoughts and insights on that statement and how business should support their teams?
Yes, it's without any question, it's a challenging time. It's a period of uncertainty, and we're all human, as we have acknowledged in the point that you've made right now, in the sense that we will react differently, and it's in that sense, I think first and foremost, it's understanding the power and the value of good communication, keeping an understanding of that level of uncertainty, and therefore how, as an organization and across teams and to certain individuals, you can then communicate effectively is really, really important. And I would say as a result of sort of my experience and just thinking about how we have been as an organization, as a team, and even within my family unit, communication has been such a pivotal part of the everyday, just helping us to get our heads around where is it that, what is it that we're doing today? How are we best positioned? And in that sense, it's actually so important then just to start with the basics. And, in terms of thinking about your senior management team, how are you effectively informing your managers of the current process? Where may there be already in terms of recognizing any sort of issues that may be emerging for staff, going back to your basics on sort of understanding risks and just starting to help prepare people. We went through all of the established good process, but fundamental to all of this was the fact that actually this is such an evolving issue, and we still have relative lack of understanding and just the implications of it, that as a result the level of anxiety can be very immediate within staff. And there is no assumption about age in this factor. I think it's just recognizing that people will react very, very differently in challenging and uncertain situations, and in that sense the communication channels, understanding how people can reach out and be informed of decisions that are taking place that will have an effect on their life, and in a direct sense, how they can then be influencing that as well is very, very important. To know how they can have control to seek the right kind of support and help. So whether it's in terms of the responsibilities of line managers and people managers, so it's not just in the context obviously of staff, but anybody with responsibility to others. So suppliers is a critical relationship to be managing as well at this time. And then just not presupposing the situation with people. As I said, people might assume that older workers will be more resilient. They would have experienced, life events, life-changing events before that. Maybe they'll be able to just, take it on the chin. This is not an assumption I think we can make. And equally that young people may be, maybe quite sort of healthy and sort of they'll be up for the challenge, but no, we have to just, I think, be very, very careful with the language that we use, to just keep it plain, easily accessible, because as I said, there is so much uncertainty, and that's where some of the critical areas can be, in terms of just keeping people abreast of information, making sure that they can be part of the process. I don't know if that specifically answers all of the question, Peter, but certainly, in terms of a fundamental element, I think those are sort of two key points from my perspective and immediate reflection.
Yeah, Jocelyn, that's great. Harry, one of the things that Jocelyn's actually highlighted there is that whole thing around, communication. But in reality, you're seeing a wider picture than that, aren't you?
Absolutely, and I think communication is so important at every stage, and maintaining those communication channels. But in terms of the health and well-being of staff, it is absolutely vital at any stage of business, but especially now as well. So what I would recommend businesses to do about that is look at what do employees want, and so often what employers think employees want is very different to what employees actually want, and B, what do employees need. So they're the two big things. What do employees want and what do employees need? And that needs to be led by the employees themselves. So in terms of building a really robust health and wellbeing strategy during this difficult period, they're the two things that we need to look at. So how are we going to look at them as businesses? The first element that I'd look at is maintaining, like Jocelyn was saying, the conversations. And so picking up the phone to your staff, it could be 2 or 5 minute conversations within the morning or in the afternoon. They could be scheduled in, or you could just pick up the phone spontaneously and have the conversation with them. How are things going? Is there anything we can do about it? Is there anything that you want? Then also looking at the needs out there, because often the wants are slightly different to the needs. For example, workers might not request any kind of ergonomic equipment, but they might need that to prevent lower back pain from occurring. So there are risk assessments that we need to be doing, and I know Cardinus really putting that forwards, which is fantastic. And so looking at surveys, staff surveys on areas such as mental well-being, sleep, nutrition, all of the key impacts that we need to optimise during this tricky period, because I think there's a lot of talk with the coronavirus, and rightly so, about hand washing and preventing it. But it does seem like it's extremely contagious. So we need to boost our immune systems during this period. And the best ways to boost our immune systems from all of the research out there is to minimize stress, maximize sleep, optimize nutrition, remain physically active and stay hydrated. So they're messages that we really need to push out there. But in terms of a health and wellbeing strategy during this really tricky period, we need to look at employee, and that can be done through conversations and employee needs through surveys.
Harry, one of the discussions we had yesterday was very much around, it seems like yesterday, was around sleep and routine.
Yes.
Again, can you give an insight into why these are important for remote working?
Absolutely. So we might think that we could get more sleep. Back of this, and employees will sleep more. It may not be the case actually, because anxiety levels are higher, and what we know about sleep is it's massively impacted by our stress levels and our anxiety levels. So in addition, if we're more sedentary, so if we sit for longer, and so we've not necessarily got the walking commute into work, again, that's going to impact upon sleep. There may be increases in alcohol intake, poorer nutrition choices because we haven't got the options and the opportunities at the supermarkets at the moment. So that could drastically impact sleep. And when we're looking at sleep, it's probably the most important health behaviour that we have. It's the foundation of our health and well-being. And the conversation we had, Peter, was around fatigue-related productivity losses within the UK. So the estimated fatigue-related productivity losses are £2,000 per employee per year. So I'm more than happy to send through the research about that. But we can imagine in a company of 5,000 people, then it really starts to have an impact. And sleep needs to be one of the main focuses to optimise employee health and well-being at this stage. So in terms of actionable advice that we can try and implement, I'd say the most important thing during this period of remote working is maintaining the routine. So if you were getting up at 6 o'clock to go into work, it might be an hour long or an hour half long commute, we still need to be getting up at 6 o'clock because the routines are so important for us and for our circadian rhythm. We'd also recommend sleeping 7 to 9 hours per night. So the research that's coming out about sleep, and if you sleep less than 6 hours per night, you're 500% more likely to suffer a cardiac arrest than if you sleep more than 6 hours per night. So the statistics are absolutely frightening coming out about sleep at the moment. So that's something that we really need to put at the forefront of our health and wellbeing strategy and employees' minds as well.
Harry, thank you, and I concur with that. So just coming back to the pair of you, Jocelyn and Harry, you are both working in business, you're both senior people, you both, have teams and stakeholders to deal with. So can you just give us a brief insight to what self-isolation feels like?
I'm happy to go first in the sense that it is a challenge, and I think I appreciate very much the sense of finding routine and keeping routine is important, but without question it is a change. I'm a mum of three boys, and we are at least fortunate that we do have a garden. Having the boys at home, looking after their schooling, whilst at the same time trying to juggle, my own job as well as that of my husband's job within sort of confined space is without any question a change in the way we work, and it's just having, helping ourselves as well as obviously reflecting back at that time back to my team at the office, talking about it with colleagues, or clients in sort of a discreet way possible, just to find a way of creating, if you would, a level of professionalism that obviously I like to work to a certain standard, and we all need to manage sort of expectations as a result. So it's very, as I said, language, how we are explaining ourselves, using the opportunity to just create an understanding and to be, I know a lot of people say kind. Absolutely, it's to be kind. It's to be patient, really, to have a degree of tolerance. But at the same time, we all do really want to continue to have, as we said, that routine and have that sense of work and being able to deliver a good job and do it well. And in that sense, I think there is still a challenge in making that transition. So I think we've been a bit of ahead of a few others in terms of our recent experience. I would still say that I am actively working at that. I don't know for how long this is going to go on for. That level of uncertainty I've already picked up in terms of conversation with a few others, both within my team, not sort of disclosing anything sensitive there, but in terms of what does that mean and how do we adjust to this period? Because it's not just that we can flip a switch, and there will be days when it will be better, easier, and there will be days when it won't be. So absolutely, I think finding the routine and keeping regular check-ins. So like Harry was saying earlier, we as a team have our stand-up in the morning at 10 o'clock, and we're now doing that virtually. And having an opportunity to see each other, some feel comfortable to do that more on a one-to-one basis. Others are quite happy to do it in the team meetings. Some prefer to talk directly on the phone, I've discovered, rather than necessarily going through the Skype call. They're just concerned because you can have multiple meetings going on, and even though you may be in a particular space, they still just want to have a sense of tactileness, I guess, in terms of that phone. And it really finding a way in which you can communicate effectively, because we are now changing it and we're down to a different kind of experience when we're communicating. We're going to have to work at this without any question, and I think that is going to create challenges, because it's going to be like this for a number of days, and some days, as I said, will be inevitably better than others. In that sense, very, very important to find the positives in language, to start on the positives, to think about constructive criticism in terms of if you're feeding back information, thinking about the ways in which you send an email. Maybe it's better to have a quick chat before you send an email, because of heightened sensitivity. People may be anxious to be performing even more so than before, and feeling not necessarily in a comfortable place to do that. And now, without sort of an informal conversation over tea with a colleague to kind of bounce an idea, they may not necessarily feel that they're as accessible. All those kind of intricate little support mechanisms that may have been happening in teams, we now need to think about how we are actually operating across our teams and with individuals, to make sure that we're getting the right kind of messaging through, because, as I said, at the end of the day, we still want to do our jobs well.
Absolutely, and just to add to that, I think with self-isolation, it's really important, as Jocelyn said, to maintain that conversation. As human beings, we are social animals. We thrive from social situations. Even the introverts, the research is showing that they still need the social situations and interactions. And again, what we need as human beings is to feel loved. And so the conversations, the way that we phrase those conversations, is crucial at this stage. And remaining positive, but obviously not unrealistic as well. We are in unprecedented times. That means that adaptations will have to be made, but keeping employees within the loop within everything is vital, because when we look at anxiety is very much a future-focused disorder. And what I mean by that is there's the worry in the future. about what's going to happen potentially. So if we as leaders and senior members of staff can do something to ease that anxiety, that's going to be fantastic, not only from the moral case but also from the business case. So I think in terms of self-isolation, one of the hardest things to be doing is maintaining good communication levels, but if we can have a strategy in place for that and regularly touch base with our teams, then that's going to be vital. Is there anything else you'd like me to add to that, Peter?
I was actually thinking, Harry, in terms of what you were saying around touching base with people. Absolutely. I think the other element that's really important and that we need to keep an eye on is around the data and just having tacit ways in which we can measure. It's certainly something that we've been talking to some of our supporter organisations, as we're very aware of the flux, and organisations are in such different places. They're just, even teams within organisations will be in different places, and I think just having a sensitivity to that. But it's a little bit like the WHO has been saying, test and test, because the situation is evolving across our teams. A lot of organizations are currently in transition to working from home. In the UK, schools haven't closed, but elsewhere schools have. Some companies have had more stringent policies in place already with regards to staff. Others haven't. So there is still a lot of difference in the an uncertainty around how we're transitioning at the moment. And I think in that sense, organizations, teams, team leaders need to keep a finger on the pulse in terms of get any sort of question out, registered, recognized somewhere. Start finding a way of capturing the right kind of data for your organization, because each organization will have its own particular focuses, and foci will know its particular needs and its particular risks, and therefore being able to find a way in which you can not only just have contact but also use that as an opportunity to catch useful data, useful insight, find a way of recording that and being able to now start to track it over the coming weeks, such that you can build in the flexible interventions to really either support particular teams, support particular people, keep the communication clear, to understand that we're all learning at this point, to really have that opportunity to reflect. I think in that sense, just keep testing and testing.
Yeah, Jocelyn, thank you. And Harry, thank you ever so much for that. I'm very conscious we're almost out of time. Emily raised a question about vulnerable staff, and I think particularly at the moment what we've got to bear in mind is that there are a number of people that potentially are at risk at the moment, and when we look at the government statistics, we've got probably about 12 million people in the UK who are at risk either because of age or medical condition. And I think it's really important that what we do is we actually consider them. And I'll reflect back on the conversation that we've had from so both Jocelyn and Harry, that the important thing is that what we do is that we actually have managers talk to staff to be able to try and make sure we understand who they are, and also get good advice to those teams as soon as possible. And what we'll do at the end as part of this is actually provide just a little bit of a fact sheet to be able to support actually the stuff that we're looking at. And I think also when we look at vulnerable staff, we've got to actually also consider the impact of lone working. So, some of the reason for today's session is to be able to give you some personal insights to actually what it feels like to be lone working. So I think it's sort of really quite important that what we do is we do consider those staff that we've got, but also sort of think about those that actually will struggle more, and also coming back to the discussions that have taken place, that the mental health issues that are being raised of self-isolation and the anxiety levels that are actually being created as well. So, you know, guys, do bear that in mind. Now, we are coming very much to the end of the discussions. I've had a number of requests that come through, and we will follow up with a recording, and also we've been capturing the questions that have come through to us, so we will respond back to you. There are some you know, fantastic support information that we're sending out to those of you that are our clients, but also for those that are joining that interest. You know, what we are trying to do is actually create an environment of providing an insight to actually how we can support you. So I'd like to take a moment to say, you know, thank you to Jocelyn for, you know, sort of your feedback and also personal insights. And Harry, you know, thank you for your expertise. You know, I'm very supportive of, you know, sort of those two subjects of sleep and movement, because, you know, I believe that those two things are, you know, good in keeping me in a good place, particularly during stressful times, and I know how effective it is for others as well. Again, just to, you know, finish off, if anybody has got any questions, you know, please just post them. You can email to us as well, and we'll do a follow-up. But I really would like to thank you all for your time, and also, you know, thank you for your for joining us today. Big thank you to the wider Cardinals team as well, who, you know, are there to answer any questions if you guys have got any. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.